Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in life when the noise around you becomes louder than the voice within you, a moment when opinions, criticism, expectations, and distractions begin to pull you in 100 different directions. And in that very moment, God gently whispers something powerful to your spirit. Focus on yourself and stay silent, not because you have nothing to say, but because what He is doing inside you is too sacred to be interrupted by the chaos outside. You see, many people misunderstand silence. They think silence is weakness, that if you are not constantly explaining yourself, defending yourself, or proving yourself, then you are somehow losing. But silence, when guided by God, is not weakness at all. It is strength under control. It is wisdom, choosing peace over noise. It is discipline, refusing to engage in battles that were never meant for you in the first place. When God tells you to focus on yourself, He is not asking you to become selfish. He is calling you to become intentional. He is asking you to take a step back from distractions, from comparisons, from unnecessary conversations, and begin to invest deeply into your own growth. Because the truth is, you cannot become who you are meant to be if you are constantly looking at what everyone else is doing. There is something powerful that happens when you shift your focus inward. You begin to see areas in your life that need healing. You begin to recognize habits that need to change. You begin to understand your purpose more clearly. And most importantly, you begin to develop a deeper relationship with God because you are no longer distracted by the noise of the world. In 2026, the assignment is clear: less talking, more becoming; less explaining, more transforming; less reacting, more trusting, because not everything deserves your attention and not everything requires your response. Some things are better left in silence, placed in the hands of God, where they can be handled far better than you ever could. There will be people who misunderstand your silence. They will wonder why you are no longer engaging the way you used to. They may even try to provoke you, to pull you back into old patterns, into old conversations, into old reactions. But you must remember this: not every invitation deserves your acceptance. Sometimes the greatest power you have is the ability to walk away quietly. God is doing a new work in your life, and new work requires new discipline. You cannot carry old habits into a new season and expect different results. You cannot keep explaining yourself to people who have already decided not to understand you. And you cannot keep pouring your energy into places where it is not valued. Silence protects your peace. Silence protects your growth. Silence allows you to hear God more clearly, because when the world gets quiet, His voice becomes louder, His direction becomes clearer, His presence becomes stronger, His presence becomes stronger. And focusing on yourself does not mean isolating yourself from the world. It means prioritizing your purpose over your popularity. It means choosing growth over approval. It means waking up every day with the understanding that your responsibility is not to impress people, but to fulfill what God has placed inside you. There are dreams within you that require your full attention. There are goals that will never be reached if you keep getting distracted by things that do not matter. There is a calling on your life that cannot be fulfilled if you are constantly reacting to every opinion in every situation. You must learn to protect your energy. You must learn to guard your mind, because what you allow into your mind will eventually shape your life. And when you choose to stay silent, you are not just avoiding unnecessary conflict. You are creating space for clarity, for focus, and for direction. In this season, God is teaching you the power of restraint, the power of waiting, the power of trusting Him even when you do not feel the need to prove anything to anyone, because the truth is, when God is working in your life, you do not need to announce it. It will speak for itself. Your growth will speak. Your peace will speak. Your results will speak. And there is something deeply powerful about becoming so secure in who you are and where you are going that you no longer feel the need to explain yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Focusing on yourself also means taking responsibility for your life. It means no longer blaming others for where you are. It means recognizing that while you may not control everything that happens to you, you do control how you respond, how you grow, and how you move forward. God is not asking you to be perfect. He is asking you to be committed. Committed to growing, committed to learning, committed to becoming the best version of yourself. And that requires time. That requires discipline. That requires moments of silence where you step away from the world and allow God to work on you. There will be times when silence feels uncomfortable, when you want to speak, when you want to react, when you want to defend yourself. But in those moments, you must remember that not every battle is yours to fight. Some battles belong to God. And when you trust Him enough to stay silent, you are making a powerful statement of faith. You are saying, God, I trust you to handle what I cannot. I trust you to fight for me. I trust you to fight for me. I trust you to bring justice, to bring clarity, to bring resolution in your perfect time. In 2026, your strength will not be measured by how loud you are, but by how disciplined you are, by how disciplined you are, by how committed you are to becoming who God has called you to be. Let others talk. Let others argue. Let others misunderstand. You stay focused. You stay disciplined. You stay silent, because God is doing something in you that requires your full attention. And when the time is right, when the process is complete, when the transformation has taken place, what He reveals through your life will be far greater than anything you could have ever explained with your words. Silence is often misunderstood in today's world. Many people believe that if you are quiet, you must be weak, afraid, or unsure of yourself. But the truth is, real strength is often revealed through restraint. There is a powerful discipline in choosing not to respond to every accusation, every misunderstanding, or every opinion that comes your way. When you learn the value of silence, you begin to understand that peace is more important than winning arguments, and clarity is more valuable than constant noise. In life, there will always be voices around you. Some will encourage you, but many will distract you. People will have opinions about your decisions, your path, your growth, and even your faith. If you try to answer every voice, you will eventually lose focus on the direction God has placed before you. Silence becomes necessary because it protects your mind from being overwhelmed by unnecessary battles. One of the greatest lessons a person can learn is that not everything deserves a response. Sometimes people speak from misunderstanding, sometimes from jealousy, and sometimes from their own unresolved struggles. If you react to everything, you give those words power over your emotions and your people direction. But when you remain calm and silent, you take back control of your peace. Silence also reveals maturity. When a person grows spiritually and emotionally, they begin to realize that reacting quickly often leads to regret. Words spoken in anger can damage relationships, create confusion, and lead to consequences that last far longer than the moment itself. Silence gives you space to think, to breathe, and to allow wisdom to guide your response, or sometimes to guide you not to respond at all. There is something remarkable about people who have learned to master their reactions. They do not rush into arguments. They do not feel the need to prove themselves constantly. They understand that their identity is not determined by public opinion. Instead, they carry a quiet confidence, knowing that their value comes from something deeper and stronger than the approval of others. When God begins to shape a person's life for a greater purpose, one of the first things He teaches is restraint. Not because your voice does not matter, but because timing matters. There are moments when speaking is necessary, but there are also moments when silence is the greatest act of wisdom. Discernment grows when you learn the difference between those two moments. Sometimes silence is protection. There are plans forming in your life that are not meant to be shared with everyone yet. There are dreams that need time to develop without the pressure of outside opinions. When you speak too soon about what God is doing in your life, you may invite doubt, negativity, or misunderstanding that can weaken your confidence. Silence allows those dreams to grow strong before they are revealed. Another powerful aspect of silence is that it helps you listen more carefully. When you are not constantly trying to defend yourself or explain yourself, You begin to notice things you once ignored. You stare. Rard hearing the quiet direction of God, guiding your decisions, you begin to see situations more clearly because your mind is no longer clouded by emotional reactions. People who talk too much often miss important lessons because they are more focused on being heard than on understanding. But when you choose silence, you give yourself the opportunity to grow in wisdom. You begin to see beyond the surface of situations, and you develop a deeper sense of patience and clarity. Silence also strengthens your inner stability. When you no longer feel the need to react immediately, you begin to develop emotional control. Life will always present challenges, criticism, and unexpected situations, but when your spirit is calm, those things do not shake you the way they once did. You become steady, focused, and grounded. Many times, people argue not because they are right, but because they want to feel powerful. Yet real power is demonstrated when you have the ability to respond, but choose peace instead. This kind of strength confuses those who expect you to react emotionally. They anticipate anger or defense, but instead they encounter calmness and restraint. Over time, silence changes the way people perceive you. They begin to realize that you are not easily pulled into drama or conflict. They understand that your energy is focused on something greater. And while some may still misunderstand you, many will start to respect the discipline and composure you carry. There are also moments when silence allows truth to reveal itself without interference. When you argue constantly, situations become complicated and confusing. But when you step back and remain calm, reality often becomes clearer to everyone involved. Time has a way of exposing what is real and what is not, and silence allows that process to unfold naturally. Another reason silence is powerful is because it protects your spiritual strength. Every unnecessary argument drains your energy. Every emotional reaction pulls your focus away from your purpose. When you engage in too many distractions, you become tired, frustrated, and discouraged. Silence guards your heart and keeps your attention aligned with what truly matters. It also helps you develop trust in God's timing. When you stop trying to defend yourself in every situation, you begin to rely more on His guidance and justice. You start to believe that He sees what others may not see and understands what others may misunderstand. That trust brings peace that arguments can never provide. In many ways, silence becomes a form of faith. It shows that you believe your life is in God's hands and that you do not need to control every outcome. Instead of reacting impulsively, you choose patience. Instead of proving yourself through words, you allow your actions and character to speak over time. As you continue to grow, you begin to notice how much freedom silence brings into your life. You are no longer trapped in endless explanations or emotional conflicts. Your mind becomes clearer, your heart becomes lighter, and your direction becomes stronger. And slowly, you realize that silence is not empty at all. It is filled with wisdom, strength, patience, and a deep sense of peace that cannot be shaken by the noise of the world. When God calls you to focus on yourself, it is not an invitation to become disconnected from others, but a divine instruction to realign your priorities. Too often, people spend their energy observing others, comparing their lives, and measuring their worth against someone else's progress. This constant outward focus slowly drains your potential, because instead of building your own path, you become distracted by paths that were never meant for you. Focusing on personal growth requires intentionality. It doesn't happen by accident. It begins with a decision to step away from distractions and take responsibility for your own life. You begin to ask yourself honest questions. Where am I right now? What habits are holding me back? What areas of my life need discipline, healing, or improvement? These are not always comfortable questions, but they are necessary if you truly want to grow. Growth often starts in silence and reflection. When you create space away from noise, you begin to see yourself more clearly. You start to recognize patterns that have been repeated for years. You notice how certain decisions have led you in circles, and in that awareness, something powerful begins to happen. You gain the ability to change. One of the greatest obstacles to personal growth is comparison. When you constantly look at others, you either feel discouraged because you think you are behind, or you feel prideful because you think you are ahead. Both of these mindsets can slow down your progress. The truth is, your journey is unique. The timing of your life is different. The purpose within you is specific to who you are. Comparing your path to someone else's only creates confusion and unnecessary pressure. Focusing on yourself means you begin to value progress over perfection. You understand that growth is a process, not an instant transformation. There will be days when you feel strong and motivated, and there will be days when you feel weak and uncertain. But what matters is consistency. Small, daily improvements eventually lead to significant change. It also requires discipline. Discipline is the bridge between where you are and where you are meant to be. Without discipline, intentions remain ideas. You may desire success, peace, and purpose, but without consistent effort, those desires will not become reality. Discipline shapes your habits, and your habits shape your future, and your habits shape your future. Another important part of focusing on yourself is learning to protect your time. Time is one of the most valuable resources you have. It is often wasted on things that do not contribute to your growth. Endless scrolling, unnecessary conversations, and constant distractions slowly take away the hours that could have been invested in building your future. When you begin to focus on yourself, you become more aware of how you spend your time, and you start making better choices. Personal growth also involves emotional healing. There are experiences from the past that may still affect your present disappointments, failures, rejection, or pain. Ignoring these things does not make them disappear. True growth requires facing them, understanding them, and allowing God to bring healing into those areas. Healing is not always immediate, but it is essential if you want to move forward without carrying unnecessary weight. As you grow, your mindset begins to change. You no longer see challenges as obstacles, but as opportunities to learn and improve. Instead of being discouraged by failure, you begin to see it as a lesson. This shift in perspective is powerful because it allows you to keep moving forward even when things do not go as planned. Focusing on yourself also means taking responsibility. It is easy to blame others for your circumstances, but growth begins when you take ownership of your life. You may not have control over everything that happens to you, but you do have control over your response. When you accept that responsibility, you gain the power to change your direction. Another important aspect is learning to say no. Not every opportunity is meant for you. Not every invitation deserves your attention. Sometimes growth requires you to step away from things that once felt important, but no longer align with your purpose. Saying no is not a sign of rejection. It is a sign of clarity. As you continue this journey, you begin to notice a deeper sense of confidence within yourself. Not a loud or boastful confidence, but a quiet assurance. You become comfortable with who you are becoming. You no longer seek constant validation from others because you understand your worth is not defined by their opinions. Focusing on yourself also strengthens your relationship with God. When distractions are reduced, your connection with Him becomes clearer. You begin to seek His guidance more intentionally. You start to rely on His wisdom rather than your own understanding. This spiritual growth becomes the foundation for every other area of your life. There will be moments when focusing on yourself feels lonely. You may notice that you are no longer as involved in certain conversations or environments. Some people may not understand your change. But growth often requires separation, not because you are better than anyone, but because your direction is different. Over time, the results of your focus will begin to show. Your thinking will become sharper. Your decisions will become wiser. Your decisions will become wiser. Your habits will become stronger, and your life will begin to reflect the effort you have invested. You will also begin to experience a deeper sense of peace. When you are focused on your own growth, you are no longer consumed by what others are doing. You are not constantly reacting to outside noise. Instead, your attention is directed toward building something meaningful and lasting. And in that process, you realize that focusing on yourself is not about isolation, but about transformation. It is about becoming the person you were created to be, step by step, day by day, with patience, discipline, and faith, guiding your journey forward. Trusting God without the need for constant explanation is one of the deepest levels of spiritual maturity a person can reach. In a world where people feel pressured to justify every decision, defend every action, and respond to every opinion, choosing to trust quietly requires both courage and faith. It means you are no longer living for the approval of people, but for the purpose placed within you. Many individuals struggle with the desire to be understood. It is natural to want others to see your intentions, to recognize your efforts, and to agree with your decisions. But the reality is, not everyone will understand your journey, not everyone will see what God has shown you, and not everyone is meant to walk with you in every season of your life. When you begin to trust God fully, you release the burden of needing to explain yourself to everyone. You come to a place where you realize that understanding from people is not a requirement for obedience to God. If He has placed something on your heart, if He has directed your steps in a certain way, then your responsibility is to follow, even if it does not make sense to others. This kind of trust requires inner confidence, not confidence in your own ability alone, but confidence in God's guidance. You begin to believe that He sees what you cannot see, that He understands what you cannot understand, and that His plan is greater than any opinion or criticism you may face. That belief becomes your foundation, allowing you to move forward without constantly seeking validation. There will be moments when people question your decisions. They may ask why you chose a certain path, why you walked away from something, or why you are doing things differently. Sometimes their questions are genuine, but other times they come from doubt, judgment, or misunderstanding. In those moments, you must learn the difference between explaining for clarity and explaining out of insecurity. Explaining out of insecurity drains your energy. It comes from a place of needing approval, of wanting to be accepted, of trying to convince others that you are right. But when you trust God, you no longer feel that pressure. You understand that not everyone needs an explanation, and not every situation requires your defense. There is a quiet strength in letting your actions speak for you. Words can be misunderstood, but consistent actions reveal truth over time. When you remain committed to your path, when you continue to grow, when you stay aligned with what God has placed in your heart, the results will eventually become evident. Trusting God without explanation also means being comfortable with silence in moments of misunderstanding. There will be times when people form opinions about you that are not accurate. They may misinterpret your silence, your decisions, or your distance, but not every misunderstanding needs to be corrected immediately. Sometimes time and consistency will bring clarity in a way that words never could. This does not mean you never communicate. There are moments when communication is necessary, especially in relationships that require honesty and understanding. But there is a difference between meaningful communication and constant justification. One builds connection while the other often leads to exhaustion. Another important aspect of this trust is patience. When you stop trying to prove yourself, you allow God to work in His timing. You are no longer rushing to make others see your perspective. Instead, you are focused on walking faithfully in the direction you have been given. This patience brings peace because you are no longer chasing approval or recognition. It also helps you develop a stronger sense of identity. When your decisions are based on God's guidance rather than public opinion, you begin to understand who you truly are. Your identity is no longer shaped by what people say about you, but by what God has placed within you. This creates stability because your sense of self is no longer dependent on changing opinions. Trusting without explanation also protects your energy. Every time you try to convince someone who has already decided not to understand you, you lose valuable time and focus. That energy could have been invested in your growth, your purpose, or your relationship with God. When you let go of the need to explain, you reclaim that energy and direct it toward what truly matters. There is also a level of freedom that comes with this mindset. You are no longer bound by the expectations of others. You are no longer adjusting your path to fit someone else's comfort. Instead, you are walking in alignment with your purpose, even if that path is different from what others expected. Over time, people will begin to notice the consistency in your life. They may not understand everything at first, but they will see the results of your faith and your discipline. Your peace will stand out. Your focus will stand out. Your growth will stand out. And without saying much, your life will begin to tell a story that words could never fully capture. This kind of trust also deepens your relationship with God. When you rely on Him rather than public approval, you begin to seek Him more intentionally. You listen more carefully. You become more sensitive to His direction, and that connection becomes stronger because it is not influenced by outside noise. There will still be challenges. There will still be moments of doubt, moments when you wonder if you should explain yourself, moments when silence feels difficult. But in those moments, you must remind yourself why you started this journey. You chose to trust God because His understanding is greater than human understanding. And as you continue to walk in that trust, you begin to experience a deeper sea-ness of peace, not the kind of peace that comes from being understood by everyone, but the kind that comes from knowing you are aligned with something greater. You realize that your responsibility is not to make everyone agree with you, but to remain faithful to what you have been called to do. And when you stay committed to that, your life becomes a reflection of trust, strength, and quiet confidence that does not need constant explanation to be powerful. Letting go of distractions and old patterns is not just a decision. It is a process that requires awareness, courage, and consistency. Many people desire a new season in their lives, but they struggle to release the habits, environments, and mindsets that belong to their past. The truth is, you cannot step fully into what God has prepared for you while still holding on to what He is asking you to leave behind. Distractions are often subtle. They do not always appear as obvious obstacles. Sometimes they come in the form of comfort, routine, or even things that seem harmless on the surface. But over time, these distractions pull your attention away from your purpose. They consume your energy, your time, and your focus, leaving you with little strength to invest in what truly matters. One of the first steps in letting go is recognizing what is no longer serving your growth. This requires honesty with yourself. There may be habits that once felt normal but are now holding you back. There may be environments that once felt comfortable but are now limiting your progress. And there may be relationships that once brought support but are now draining your energy. Growth demands separation, not because everything you leave behind is bad, but because not everything aligns with where you are going. You must understand that every new level of your life requires a different version of you, and that version cannot be developed. Do you remain attached to patterns that belong to your past? Old patterns are often rooted in familiarity. Even when they are not beneficial, they feel comfortable because they are known. Breaking those patterns requires stepping into the unknown, and that can feel uncomfortable. But discomfort is often a sign of growth. It means you are moving beyond what is familiar and stepping into what is necessary for your transformation. There are patterns of thinking that must be released. Negative thoughts, self-doubt, fear, and limiting beliefs can quietly shape your actions and decisions. If you continue to think the same way, you will continue to live the same way. True change begins in the mind. When you allow God to renew your thinking, your perspective shifts, and your life begins to follow. There are also patterns of behavior that must be addressed. Procrastination, inconsistency, lack of discipline, and emotional reactions can keep you stuck in cycles that prevent progress. These patterns may have been developed over time, but they are not permanent. With intention and effort, they can be replaced with habits that support your growth. Letting go also means releasing the need for constant comfort. Growth often requires you to do things that are challenging, unfamiliar, and even uncomfortable. It may require waking up earlier, working harder, learning new skills, or stepping into opportunities that stretch your abilities. Comfort may feel safe, but it rarely leads to transformation. Another important aspect is learning to walk away from unnecessary distractions. Not everything deserves your attention. There are conversations that lead nowhere, activities that add no value, and situations that only create stress. When you begin to focus on your purpose, you become more selective with your time and energy. You start to ask yourself whether something is contributing to your growth or pulling you away from it. This process also involves letting go of the past. Past mistakes, failures, and regrets can hold a strong grip on your mind if you allow them to. But carrying the past into your future only slows you down. You must learn to take the lessons without holding on to the weight. God's grace allows you to move forward without being defined by what is behind you. There will be moments when letting go feels difficult. You may feel a sense of loss, even when you know it is necessary. But every release creates space. When you let go of distractions, you create room for focus. When you let go of old habits, you create space for new discipline. When you let go of what no longer aligns, you make room for what does. As you begin to let go, you will notice a shift in your life. Your mind becomes clearer because it is no longer cluttered with unnecessary thoughts. Your energy becomes stronger because it is no longer divided among distractions. Your direction becomes sharper because you are no longer pulled in multiple directions. This clarity allows you to move forward with purpose. You begin to make decisions based on your goals rather than your emotions. You become more intentional with your actions, and you start to see progress in areas where you once felt stuck. Letting go is also an act of trust. It means believing that what lies ahead is greater than what you are leaving behind. It means trusting that God is guiding you towards something better, even if you cannot see it fully yet. That trust gives you the strength to release what is familiar and step into what is new. Over time, the things you once struggled to let go of will no longer have the same hold on you. What once felt difficult will begin to feel natural. The habits you once depended on will be replaced by stronger, healthier patterns. And the distractions that once consumed your time will no longer have the same appeal. You will also begin to notice a deeper sense of discipline in your life. Not forced discipline, but a natural alignment with your purpose. Your actions will reflect your priorities. Your choices will support your growth, and your life will begin to move in a direction that is intentional and meaningful. This transformation does not happen overnight. It is built through consistent effort, daily decisions, and a willingness to grow. There will be moments of progress and moments of struggle, but each step forward strengthens your ability to continue. As you continue this journey, you will realize that letting go is not about loss, but about gain. You are not losing anything that was truly meant for your future. Instead, you are releasing what is necessary so you can fully receive what God has prepared for you. And in that process, you become stronger, clearer, and more aligned with your purpose, moving forward with a renewed sense of direction and a life that reflects the discipline and focus required to step into a new season with confidence and faith. In the end, everything comes down to alignment with God, alignment with your purpose, and alignment with the person you are becoming. When you choose silence over unnecessary noise, you protect your peace and allow wisdom to guide your actions. When you focus on yourself, you invest in the growth that will shape your future. When you trust God without needing to explain yourself, you walk in confidence that is not dependent on human approval. And when you let go of distractions and old patterns, you create space for transformation to take place in your life. This journey is not about perfection, but about progress. It is about making daily decisions that move you closer to who you are meant to be. There will be challenges, moments of doubt, and times when the process feels slow, but every step you take in faith is building something greater than you can see. God is working in ways that go beyond your understanding, shaping your character, strengthening your spirit, and preparing you for what lies ahead. As you move forward, remember that not everything requires your attention, not everyone deserves your explanation, and not every situation needs your reaction. Stay focused on what truly matters. Guard your peace, protect your energy, and trust the process that God is leading you through. Because when you remain disciplined, when you stay committed, and when you walk in quiet confidence, your life will begin to reflect a strength and clarity that no words can fully express. And in the right time, everything God has been preparing within you will be revealed in a way that speaks louder than anything you could have ever said.